In the wake of UFC 319 and, let's be honest, some pretty lackluster entertainment value with the main event between Dricus du Plessis and Khamzat Chimaev, where basically for all of the 25 minutes Khamzat was absolutely taking Dricus's weapons away from him and really kind of ragdolling him the whole time, but he really didn't do anything to hurt the guy. This is wildly different from the Khamzat we've come to know. In his first couple of UFC fights in 2020, he didn't just control and throw around his opponents. He beat the snot out of John Phillips and Ray's McKee while also finishing them. Mearshart, he deaded in just a few seconds with a single punch.
You gotta be kidding me! You gotta be kidding me! You can't say much other than wow.
He's special. The guy is special. I've been in the fight business my whole life. I've never seen anything like it.
He mauled Li Jingliang, Kevin Holland, and everybody knows what happened to Whitaker's not safe for work jaw. And even though Khamzat gassed against Usman towards the end, he was still threatening far more often with heavy strikes and rear naked choke attempts. Then of course the elephant in the room with Gilbert Burns. The defensive jiu-jitsu, pardon the pun, was on point.
But I was too respectful for his grappling, that's why I didn't work on the ground. But when I took him down, he tried to took armbar something. I was like, yeah, no, I don't like that shit.
And instead it took place on the feet, which made it literally fight of the year for most people. And I think that's why people expected more from Khamzat in this main event. It's what made Khabib popular too, and their style somewhat comparable. These guys aren't looking to merely take you down and win on points. No, they want to kill you once it hits the mat. So there are tons of valid criticisms to throw at this fight, and I agree with them for the most part. And to be fair to Khamzat, DDP's defense, once it did hit the ground, nullified a lot of the offense Khamzat was trying to do. He was trying to do more. And so you pair that with the fact that he couldn't stop any of those takedowns, yeah, there's plenty of blame to share on both sides of this one. But those agreements definitely fell apart when I came across this dude from Barstool's take on the fight. Quote, "Dumb sports rule. If you wrestle a guy for 25 minutes and can't submit him, you should lose." 18K likes on this? Holy shit. Yeah, okay, that is a really dumb sports rule. Legit one of the worst takes I think I've ever heard in the sport. And yeah, I get he's acknowledging it's a dumb take with that preface, kind of like saying unpopular opinion with a troll's wink. But the dude was going pretty hard for DDP all night because he was on their podcast. And there are a lot of people in those 18K likes agreeing with him. But I know you gotta be asking, what does any of this have to do with what I've said in my title that everyone actually does care about MMA wrestling? Well, just think about it for a second. You could be watching kickboxing, but you don't. You could watch a lot more boxing instead of MMA, but many of you aren't really interested outside of the bigger fights and watch a lot less of that than you do MMA. Furthermore, there's a zillion spin-offs of the MMA rule set as we know it that disincentivize the ground game. Yet I'm willing to bet most of you don't even know what I'm talking about when I say that. And I'll just ask you this right now. Why? It's what everybody seems to want, right? It's definitely more crowd-pleasing and wouldn't get booed like Khamzat did the other night, even though that entire crowd was on his side before the fight started. Well, I think it's one incredibly simple reason. Those guys from those other sports are not the best fighters in the world. They're just not. There's a reason why boxers aren't coming over to MMA. Not even just the UFC, where it can be a lot more restrictive in terms of earning potential. Like, just think about it for a second. Jake Paul has made a fortune off of fighting retired MMA veterans. Nate Diaz, 3 years away from the UFC, could still pull a giant box office and pay-per-view and live gate with any fairly decent boxer that wants to fight him. But in MMA, why is nobody seemingly interested in that?
Your only chance is in the ring, in the boxing ring with the boxing rules. Because out of that, without that, you are nothing in front of me.
It's not about the money, because the money is there in those fights. Deontay Wilder raised his hand even after the AJ fight, saying he'd be willing to fight Ngannou in MMA. Where the hell did that go?
Did mention the Deontay Wilder fight though. That's very interesting. He won in June.
We haven't engaged personally, but it's gonna be soon.
Clearly, Ngannou has fought the scariest guys who are ranked higher than him in that same division. I'm pretty sure Ngannou isn't the reason that fight with Wilder ain't happening. And let's give a ton of credit to Kickboxers, because they actually do cross over into MMA and have done so since the beginning of it. In part because I think the money in MMA is much better as a larger sport at the top especially. Although Viatov played the market really well in his situation, his earning potential is definitely higher at the highest level though. But just look at Alex Pereira. He objectively was not a worldwide star despite being a double champ in Glory. It's about as big as it gets. In fact, he was mostly just known for being the guy who beat Izzy before he became a huge star in the UFC and got the belt. Look at Pereira now. He's a giant superstar. And both those kickboxing superstars knew they weren't the best fighters on the planet when they came over. Izzy's out and out said it on the Joe Rogan podcast.
What do we do? It's okay, you're a man. Like, yo, fuck you. We're going to do it man to man. But right. No kicks though, no knees, no elbows. If you want to prove you're the best fighter, you have to fight people from other codes.
Right.
And this is at the UFC, that's the highest level.
But more importantly, these guys did lose when they tried MMA. Izzy got controlled in his first amateur fight with zero answers to the ground game, and Pereira, even though he always cross-trained a little bit, he also lost in jungle fight to another ground-based guy, which took many years of MMA training to overcome. That was actually 6 years before he ever stepped foot in the UFC. It took a while. And he could still win his belt back, but clearly Ankalaev has given him a lot of homework to do for their rematch. And I think that's what people like about these kickboxers so much. Fans might still despise the wrestling style and the wrestlers, but when they see a kickboxer has figured out how to stop a wrestler, I think it's pretty satisfying. And it probably makes them even bigger fans of that striker. They've shown that they can hang with any style and destroy them regardless. The best in the world. Or hell, how about the terrifying Taekwondo Olympian Rebellis de Spain, who is destroying everybody in karate combat right now, which basically does have a limited MMA rule set at this point. They do have some allowed striking on the ground. Well, I don't need to remind you how poorly that went for de Spain in the UFC. Basically, he couldn't stop a single takedown and was expelled from the promotion within 7 months of joining it. The fact is, it's been proven time and again, literally going back to the first UFC event ever with Hoist and Ken submitting everybody, including each other, to win that tournament, that the only thing that saves non-grappling fighters is the limited rule set of their respective martial arts. They have to learn it to be successful in a more realistic fighting situation like MMA, to be the best fighter regardless of style. And that obviously goes for modern MMA. If a ref is standing you up in a fight or to reset between rounds, Khamzat and DDP pretty much showed over 25 minutes that wasn't going to happen. In real life, nobody is picking you back up from the ground. You are stuck there until you figure out a way out, they let you back up, or perhaps you're maybe not even with us anymore as a human being. We can try to curb these rules if that's where it's headed and push for more action, which I'm not necessarily against depending on the specific ideas you have. I do think ref stand-ups are a necessary thing when nothing is happening. But if you are trying to find out who the best fighter is without the rules getting too much in the way, MMA is by far the closest you will get to it, with the highest level of athletes incentivized by money to do so. This is what makes them the best fighters on the planet. Otherwise, you might want to consider a bit more of the striking arts only, because they are very entertaining and very much worth your time if that's genuinely what you only want. But you already knew that before I said it. I'm not telling you anything. And despite knowing that, nobody is actually going and doing that. They're still watching MMA. This has been a debate since MMA became popular, and it's the obvious reason people watched. The moment you decide to stop watching and watch another sport, you are no longer finding out who the best fighter in the world is. Just somebody who's the best at that one specific thing. The best fighter on the planet is an MMA fighter, full stop. Anyhow, that's it guys. That is my rant on the subject. I do have plenty of criticisms for Khamzat's performance. I kind of mentioned some of that in the beginning in terms of trying to end the fight, but on the same token, it works, and you can't argue with that. And the sooner fighters prepare for it accordingly, the sooner that person with your preferred style has a chance to actually beat it. This is what MMA is all about. It's always explicitly been that from the beginning.
And it takes martial arts that have been around for thousands of years, and it puts it in a format where you can demonstrate your skills against another guy who has skills of a varying art.
There was always this thought, like, what would happen if a karate guy fought a judo guy? What would happen if a boxer fought a wrestler? But until UFC 1 came around, no one really knew. You know, fighting for me was always stand-up fighting. I mean, I wrestled a little bit in high school, but fighting for me was kickboxing. You think you know how to fight, and then you get in there, and then all of a sudden you're on your back, you don't know what to do, and all of a sudden you're getting choked, and you're like, oh no, this is crazy.
I'm genuinely curious to read your comments on this one. I'm sure I'll get some really smart responses back, and I'm interested to read what you have to say. It's fun for me to have these kind of persuasive arguments, and it's clearly my reason for watching MMA. So that's what I want to know from you. Why do you keep watching despite the wrestling? And why aren't you watching those other sports? Why do you push through it?